everybody. Welcome. Before we get started, I'd appreciate it if everybody would turn their cell phones to quiet. Thank you. So good evening and welcome. Thank you for coming to this really special event. The Schreyer Honors College takes great pride in this event because it aligns so nicely with our mission. Our mission is achieving academic excellence with integrity, building a global perspective, and creating opportunities for leadership and civic engagement. And tonight's lecture does a great job of supporting that mission and our values in the college. I want to extend a special welcome to everybody joining us online this evening, including Mrs. Luchinsky, friends and family of those who support the Mark Luchinsky Memorial Lecture, and students, faculty, and staff at the Commonwealth campus locations. Welcome to all of you. We are also very happy to have in our audience State College Mayor Hahn and his spouse Cindy Hahn with him this evening. Thank you for joining us. Tonight's presentation will also be available on CNET Channel 98 for several days throughout February, and for specific dates and additional information about that, there's a link on the back of your program that provides that information. And now it is my pleasure to welcome each of you tonight as we recognize the anniversary of Mark Allen Luchinsky's passing on January 18th, 1995, at the young age of 20. The Mark Luchinsky Memorial Lecture Series was created in 1996 to remember and honor Mark's character and contributions to his life as a son, an undergraduate, and most importantly, a young man whose life held much promise. Mark Luchinsky, a university scholar majoring in biochemistry, was a member of the Penn State Golden Key Honor Society and the Alpha Epsilon Delta Pre-Medical Honor Society. Although he was a science student, Mark loved the study of all subjects, including the classics, poetry, history, geography, and sports. In 1996, gifts from the family and friends of Mark Luchinsky created an endowment to support a lecture series that has featured speakers who possess outstanding character and integrity and have a passion for lifelong learning. Tonight's lecture is presented in memory of Mark Luchinsky, a true scholar, and in the words of his parents, a light that shone brightly, a light that shone briefly, but ever so brightly. Will you please join me for a moment of silence to honor his memory? Thank you. Before we introduce tonight's special guest, I would like to invite to the stage a scholar alumnus, a member of our external advisory board, the vice president of Goldman Sachs, and a very special friend of the Schreyer Honors College, Mr. Ryan Newman, to share some special remarks.
Thank you, Dean Johnson. Well, I will be very brief so that I don't keep you from the main event. But I thought I would share just a personal perspective. So I graduated Penn State in 2001. And while I was a student here, John was also a student. And what you'll learn about John, and you'll see very quickly as he takes the stage after Dean Johnson introduces him formally, he does everything with a tremendous amount of intensity. He works out physically with intensity. He reads with intensity. Dare I say, he even eats with intensity. He also, as I came to saw, was great in his intellectual pursuits with tremendous intensity there as well. And John and I really didn't spend a lot of time together as students. Maybe it was in part because he was always in these intense bubbles making his way around campus. I remember one situation where I came down the hallway. We both lived in Atherton Hall at one point in Schreyer Honors College, and he was laying sort of across the hallway painting on this very big canvas in the middle of the hallway, and it looked so intense that I decided to go outside and go around the other way to not disturb him. Why he thought painting in the hallway was the right place will only be left to his knowledge. But in any event, We had the chance to attend a undergrad research expedition in Kentucky, and it was there that we really had the chance to spend a lot of time together and really grow in our shared fondness for a variety of different topics. And then, like many things in life, I graduated and sort of went on with my life in one direction, and he went in another, and we really didn't stay in any touch for a number of years, well over a decade. And then, I don't know what it was, but just one day I found myself wondering, I think what it was is I saw someone else that we went to school with on TV, and I thought, you know, who did I know from school that just always had this sort of shared ambition or this level of focus, dare I say intensity, that would probably lead to great success? And so I literally did what I'm sure none of you in this room have ever done. I Googled someone. And so I Googled John, and the first thing I found was this really interesting speech on the morality of drone warfare, which is interesting and a topic perhaps for another day. But then the next item I found was a New York Times book review highlighting a best-selling book that John had recently written. And I was amazed and delighted as I read about the tremendous work that my friend had essentially achieved at that point. But my delight only increased when I learned that the book was not only this tremendous work of literature, but it was in part memoir of everything he had done from the last time I saw him 15 years ago up until that point. So there, for the taking, in 250 pages of laborious detail, did I have the chance to learn what my friend had been up to and how extraordinary it was, along with his wife Carol and daughter Becca and all of the different aspects of the book that come to life. So with that, I'm very pleased to welcome Dean Johnson back to the stage to formally introduce our speaker, and I want you all to know that you are so fortunate to share in the same delight that I discovered some time ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Tonight we invite you to join in the conversation with this year's Mark Luchinsky Memorial Guest Speaker, Dr. John Kaag, to speak about morality in the age of hubris, what matters most and why. He will lead us on a journey through philosophical perspectives of the numerous ethical dilemmas we face in the 21st century. A member of our Schreyer College staff was inspired to say, "One's sense of purpose can be unclear. Core values can be challenged, and our very own personal standard of ethics and integrity that we strive to define and understand over time become our legacy and identity." To deliver tonight's message is Dr. John Kaag, a scholar alumnus, author, professor, and longtime friend of the Schreyer Honors College. Dr. Kaag graduated from the Schreyer Honors College and Penn State in 2003, earning a master's degree in philosophy. He continued his studies at the University of Cambridge and went on to earn a doctorate of philosophy from the University of Oregon in 2007. Dr. Kaag currently teaches philosophy at the University of Massachusetts Lowell and is the author of the book American Philosophy, A Love Story. This book was featured on NPR and in the New York Times in 2016. He uses his book to inspire readers to evaluate the true meaning of love, freedom, and the role that wisdom can play in turning one's life around. After this event, Dr. Kaag will be autographing copies of his book in the lobby outside of this room. We look forward to reading additional inspiring books in the future. So, Dr. Kaag, we welcome you back to the campus and to the stage for our 23rd Mark Luchinsky Memorial Lecture. Dr. Kaag, welcome.
So, I want to thank, I'd like to thank Donna Meyer and the administration of the Schreyer Honors College, Ryan Newman, my friend and someone I really look up to. I'd like to thank the dean. I'd like to thank the Schreyer family because I think that we all have a lot to thank them for. They changed my life indirectly and directly, and I never have gotten a chance to say as publicly as this, thank you. So thank you. And the Luchinsky family, a family that suffered great loss and then turned around and gave a gift, a series of lectures, which I think is an appropriate gift to memorialize a life that sort of flourished and then was cut short too soon. So, along these lines, I want to ask the following question. Let me see a show of hands. How many of you are not yet 20? Okay. So, I would encourage this hour to be a gentle point of encouragement, to understand that life can be cut short at any time and that it's up to you to make the best of it. How many of you are 20? Okay, so to you, the message is also a gentle, time is of the essence. Okay, and how many of you are over 20? And a very gentle word that perhaps life is an issue of gratitude. And to squander the life that you have is an act of ingratitude. So, with that. So let's talk about hubris. Hubris, for the last 2,500 years, has been philosophy's greatest foe. Okay? So what is hubris? Hubris is a type of overweening pride. The type of pride where your natural self-interest, your natural sense that you are the center of the universe gets hold of you, and then it controls yourself and oddly controls others at the same time, much to their dismay. Okay? It's the sense of, I have the power, like He-Man says. Okay? That's hubris. Now, in the history of the West, since the ancient Greeks, hubris, at least at first, was punished appropriately. Like, we think about people with overweening pride and we think, you know, maybe they have what's coming to them, namely, for the ancient Greeks, death. Okay? So if you think, the classic example is Icarus and Daedalus. Okay? Daedalus is this classic engineer working over at, you know, eating over in West Campus. The classic engineer. But this classic engineer is a genius, which some of you folks are as well. He makes these wings out of feathers, wax, and wood. They work really well. They take him very high. But his son, Icarus, isn't satisfied. Okay? Icarus is a moment of hubris. Icarus thinks, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go really high. Okay? The higher, the better. And in fact, Icarus takes these wings up toward the sun. And wax and sun don't mix. Okay? And Apollo says, Icarus, you're going to die. And that's where the Icarian sea comes from. He falls to his death. Done. Okay? This is a case where you think, you know, maybe he had what's coming to him. Maybe that hubris, that pride, really good. Justice was served. Tonight we're going to talk about a different type of hubris. The type of hubris that is not punished or seems not to be punished. We're going to talk about the age of hubris in which our leaders are powerful and in fact come to power and stay in power through hubris. Okay, what happens then? Okay, so this was also, the ancients knew something about this as well. What is this? No, seriously, let's talk about it. Brandon, what's this? Ring of Gaea? Yeah, oh, philosophy major, good. Now let's go, Faith, what is this? Don't say the Ring of Gaea. Yeah, the Lord of the Rings, and this is where Tolkien gets the idea of the Lord of the Ring, okay? Now, this ring is very special. I'll tell you a little story. The myth of Gaea comes from Plato's Republic, Book 2 of Plato's Republic. In this story, Glaucon, who's Plato's brother, poses a problem to Socrates, which is the problem that we're going to talk about today. And here's the problem. The problem is this. There's somebody like Gaea out in the world. This is Gaea. Gaea is a farmer in ancient Lydia. That's modern-day Turkey. Okay? Gaea is a sort of nice person. He has no huge ambitions until one day, digging around in his farm, he discovers a ring. Okay? And when you slip this ring on, it makes you invisible. Okay? Now, all of a sudden, Gaea, who used to have no ambitions, has all the ambitions. Now he has the power of invisibility, and that's what he's going to do. He's going to become invisible, and suddenly he's going to fulfill the ambitions that he's never actually had the power to fulfill before. So, what does he do? He goes to town, he falls in love with the queen, he seduces her, and he kills the king. That's it. Stabs him. Okay? While under the cloak of darkness, under the cloak of invisibility. Now you think to yourself, this is not a nice guy, okay? This is not the type of person. Would you want him as a president? I mean, would you want him as a leader? No, of course not, right? I mean, you definitely wouldn't want this guy as your leader, correct? But guess what? He becomes the leader, okay? And he stays the leader. That's the end of the story. And you're left with the thought, you know, this is not right. Gyges is just our leader, and that's the end of the story. It should end with some sort of Icarus and Daedalus moment, right? But it doesn't. And that's disturbing. That's what we're here to talk about today. Now, I say to my little daughter, my 5-year-old daughter, Becca, I say, I tell her the story of Gyges, and I say, Becca, what would you do? And she goes, I'd give presents to you, Papa, and be very hidden about it. But then my mother says to her, she says, wouldn't you steal some candy? And Becca goes, okay, just a little. I mean, this is, you cannot learn about Gyges too early. So the question that we're going to ask today is, I've given this question a lot of thought. How do you get to Gyges? Okay, so we have these sort of quips. Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's quip. So with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah, but you have to realize, right, that you have power and that you also have moral responsibility. That's hard, especially with hubris, the blinders where you are the single most powerful thing in your universe. Okay, it's hard to get through the moral message. So the question is, how do you do it? Over the last 10 years, I've been teaching Intro to Philosophy. I teach it every term out of choice, not out of necessity. I just do it. I love it. Okay? And I've begun to think about how to get to Gyges. Okay? How to make him or her actually pay attention to moral issues. So that's what we're going to do today. So I start with this question, why are you here? Okay? And I asked this to 2,500 students. I have, over the last 10 years, asked it to 2,500 students. What do you think the number one answer is? Why are you here? And I ask it in a classroom. So, somebody said it. Somebody's murmuring it. Go ahead. Because they have to be there. And then, what's your name? Sienna. Sienna? Okay. So they have to be there. And then me being their curmudgeonly professor says, Sienna, why do you have to be there? Give it to me. Tell me why. Why do you have to be in your class?
Because I want to.
Oh, yeah, that's not what I get. I mean, I wish I got that, but that is not what I get at all. You had it right. What's your name? I'm looking at you. You had it right.
Lydia.
Lydia. So, Lydia.
It was a requirement.
Oh, it's a requirement. For what?
To get through your major.
Through your major. And then me being the curmudgeonly professor says, why do you have to get a major? And then what's the answer? Right, Abigail? Yeah, so Abigail, what's the answer?
So you can graduate.
So you can graduate. And then I come back and I say, Brandon, why do you have to graduate?
To get a job.
To get a job. Like, I mean, this is the classic move that we have, right? We move from classroom to this, right? This is not mine. But, you know, it's something like this. To get the grades, to get the graduation, to get the tool of all tools, which is money. And then I ask and I say, like, Lydia, why do you want a lot of money? So you can buy this. I mean, there's no mystery, right? Where do you want to buy your house? Come on, imagine.
Like that.
Oh, like that, right? I mean, you want to live like this. You want to live like a king in some sort of gated community, right? You just do. That's what hubris requires. Okay, so, and then you ask yourself, what is this sort of rationale? Well, philosophers have a term for it. Okay, you're moving from GPA to graduation to jobs to money to things, to material possessions. Okay? Philosophers call this instrumental reasoning. Why? Because every step along the way is a means to another end. Okay? An instrument, a tool. Right? Now let me ask this question. This is a very serious question. What's your name?
Gordon.
Gordon?
Yep.
Gordon, how much of your life is dictated by instrumental reasoning?
Every bit.
every bit of it. Whoa. Okay. Let's ask. Let me ask. What's your name?
Julie.
Julie. How much of your life is dictated by instrumental reasoning?
You just have everything.
No. That's what Gordon said. Mine is not. Mine. I hope that is not the only option. But Julie, Gordon said that every bit of it. Would you agree with it? I'm just curious. This sort of stepwise progression where we, have certain goals in order to achieve other goals, in order to achieve money, which is the goal of all goals, and then, we get a big house. What do you think, Julie? How much of your life?
Probably a good amount.
Give me a percentage so we can work with it.
75.
75%. Good. Okay. Now, there is no problem with this type of reasoning. There's no problem with it, except maybe one problem. Okay, so let's talk about it. Now, the first part of this lecture was sort of quiet or gentle comments. This is no longer going to be gentle. Just brace yourself. Okay, there's only one problem. Let's go back to Gordon. Gordon, you ready for this, Gordon? Maybe no. Should I pick somebody else? Oh, you're ready? Tough it out, okay? You want to get that awesome house, right? Probably. Okay. So tell me what, give me the year, give me the age that you're going to be when you buy that house. 50. And how old are you now?
19.
19. Good. Okay. Fair enough. So let's just imagine the reason you're in your classes, right, is so that you ultimately can get a house when you're 50. Is this what you're telling me? More or less?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to see. So there's no problem with that logic except maybe one. And in this context, we should actually take it pretty soberly. So let's talk about it. Gordon, let's just do it this way. Gordon, we have 35 minutes left in our class, okay? And I know what the blue loop and the white loop are like. They're buses, right, that go all around, and the bus drivers don't look where they're going at all. They're just driving, correct, Gordon? Now, Gordon, you leave class, pretend this is your class, right? And you say, the reason I'm here is to get that house way at the end of the rainbow, okay? But unfortunately, you walk out 35 minutes from now. You step outside, okay? And what happens? You walk right across, what's this road? What is it? Curtain or something? Yeah. And the loop comes, and the loop driver is not paying attention at all. And, that's it. That's it. This is the feeling of meat on meat. That's it. That's all it's smush. Do you get this? Now you say to yourself, now instrumental reasoning doesn't make much sense, right? You got a problem when you're laying there, right? Or in the case of Mark, it just happens. 20 years old, boom, done, right? Now, let's ask. Can anybody explain to me what the problem is with instrumental reasoning, given what we call human finitude? Oh, come on. Yeah, go ahead.
You're always going for something that's in the future, but you don't have it right now.
Yeah, that's right. You don't have it right now, right? And what happens to poor Gordon?
Well, he just doesn't get what he wants.
He doesn't get all this stuff, okay? Now, what is this picture really about? Okay, it's not just about who, the question, why are we here? What is this picture about? What's the focal point? Brandon, what's the focal point of this picture? Go ahead.
It's Socrates about to be poisoned.
True, it is. Socrates about to get poisoned, but actually, if you look carefully, this is the focal point. Right? It's where all your eyes are drawn. For a reason. Tell me why. What's in the cup? Go ahead.
The hemlock. Socrates is accepting it on his own terms.
You got it. Right? Socrates is like this. I'm going to give an account of my life given the ultimate end that I face. Human finitude. Death. Okay, that's what the picture is about. Now, unfortunately, that's what we have to do as human beings. Can you give a good account of your life? Can you do it, given the fact of your finitude? Now, let me ask, how many of you want to say this at the end of life? Like, Gordon, you have 34 minutes left. Okay? Now, let me ask, when those 34 minutes are up, when there's only 2 minutes left, how many of you want to be able to say this claim? My life was worth living. Let me see. Is there anybody who doesn't want to say that in the last 2 minutes? Now we have Gaiji's where we want him. Think about this. Even the most powerful among us are going to have to face this cup. Get it? Okay? And if you can get that person to say, I want to say that my life is worth living, then you have him, you'll see, I hope, where we want him. Okay? So here we go. Now, this is not a sort of new phenomenon in the history of Western philosophy. You probably don't recognize either of these guys because usually this fellow, who's the more famous of the two, usually has a big neck beard. His name's Henry David Thoreau. Okay, but this is young Henry David Thoreau. And this is his brother, John. In 1840, Henry David Thoreau and John Thoreau travel up the Merrimack River not far from where I live. They're out on a sort of expedition. Both of them have, Henry's graduated from Harvard. His life is sort of stretched out before him. Things are looking pretty good. Okay? They go on this river expedition, and when they return home, they start a school right outside of Concord. They're school teachers for high school kids. They have a pencil factory. The family has a pencil factory. Everything is going according to plan. Okay? But in 1842, this is what happens to John Thoreau. It's kind of sad. It's very sad. He's shaving. Okay? And he nicks his finger. And he gets tetanus. And 2 weeks later, he dies in Henry David Thoreau's arms. He's in his 20s. So Henry David Thoreau, 3 years later, July 4th, 1845, goes to Walden, and he writes this. I'll summarize it. You don't have to read it, and I'm not going to read it. He says, I went to the woods to live deliberately, to sort of front the essential facts of life, such that when I got to the end of life, I didn't discover, unfortunately, that I hadn't lived. Okay, that's what he's saying in Walden. We think about Walden as a sort of environmental tract, this really, you know, you go out and you hug some trees and life is better. But really, it's an elegy for his brother John, and he's sort of facing this cup that Socrates faced when asked the question, why are we here? Now, Thoreau, this issue of living deliberately, we're going to return to this at the end of our talk. Because the scariest part of life, what do you think the scariest part of death? Anybody have candidates for what's the scariest part of death? Anybody know? The what?
Not living your life.
Not living it, like not getting all the stuff that you hoped for?
No.
Okay, good.
Living it in a more deeper meaning. Well, in my eyes, that would be my biggest regret.
Ah, fair enough. Now, I think you've nailed it, and we didn't even have to go through the part where we said the scariest part of death is the pain, or the scariest part of death is the not knowing. The scariest part of death is getting to the end of life and looking back and saying, oh, sugar, I did not, that's my life? Oh, sugar. Like, that's scary. That's the stuff of horror films. You get this? It's the, oh my gosh, I spent my life doing that? That's not even my life. That's somebody else's life. Those are somebody else's expectations or beliefs. That's the scary part. Okay? Now that's what we're going to have to sort of talk through. Now at this point, I do this in my intro to philosophy class, and at this point, the students, you folks aren't, but the students are kind of shaken up. They're like, I didn't come here to talk about death. Okay, this is a bummer. I came here to talk about the hopeful stuff of morality. But the issue here is twofold. One is, we're not going to talk about death a whole lot. Okay? We're going to talk about life and making good on it. That's what the end of this lecture is about. Number 2, you don't get to Geiges by playing nice. You get to Geiges by fronting the essential facts of his or her life. Okay? One of the essential facts of his or her life, you're gonna die. Okay? So, here we go. Let's start talking about, so let's ask, what do you know about death? I bet you folks know certain things. Saksham, tell me about death. Tell me something you know.
Something about you leave your loved ones.
Yeah, you leave your loved ones, but we don't know that about death because unfortunately there are people who sometimes are not loved. Okay, so you don't know it. I'm asking hardcore questions about death. Julie, what do we know about death?
It's fine.
It's final. That's something you know. That seems 100% correct. Give me something else you know about death. Your heart stops. Your physical body ceases. Okay? The movements of your physical body. What else do you know? It's inevitable. It's inevitable. You can't get away from the bus, right? Gordon, like you can't like get around the loop. It's coming. It's inevitable. Okay, what else do you know about death? These are good things to think about. Come on. What else do you know? I don't know anything. Yes, you do. Tell me, what do you know? Sean, what do you know?
It doesn't make any difference to race, religion, which one you have.
Exactly. It happens to everybody, even Geiges. And that turns out to be a good thing for our argument. Okay? Even Geiges. What else do you know? This is probably the hardest thing. It is happening right now. Okay? Death is happening right now. And it's not happening right now to other people. It's happening to Ryan. Okay? It's happening right now and right now and right now and right now. Where am I headed? The grave. That's where I'm going. That's where we're all going. Now, have I lied to you yet? Anybody want to call me on the argument that we're fleshing out here? You say, Kaag, you're lying to me. Have I told you lies? Not yet? Should I continue? Good. All right. So it's happening right now. It happens to everybody. It's final. You can't get around it. Now you're like, oh, geez. It happens to even this guy. Okay? This is Shelley's Ozymandias. You know, the King of Kings. The King of Kings, he's also going to die. So is Geiges. So what can we think about this? Let's go back to Gordon. Gordon. I'm not picking on you. Gordon, you have 38 minutes left. What would you do if you had 38 minutes? I'm a genie. Here, I'll do what philosophers call a thought experiment. Okay? A thought experiment is I get to make stuff up and you sort of play along. Okay? So Gordon, I'm a genie. You can do anything you want, and I can give you anything except two things. One, I cannot make the bus come at a different time. I can't delay the bus. I can't change the bus schedule. You have 38 minutes. That's it. And I can't, number two, give you the psychological disposition that makes it okay for you to die. So I can't be like implanting in Gordon some sort of hero that's okay dying. I can't do that. But I can give you anything else you want, Gordon. What do you want?
Mixed flavors at the creamery.
Say again? Yes! Eat! You want to say it again?
Mixed flavors at the creamery.
Mixed flavors at the creamery. I can do that. The genie can do that for you. That is a good thing. We'll talk about that. That's called hedonism. Okay, but that's good. I mean, that's a nice suggestion. What else? Yeah. You'd call your family, right? And you wouldn't be like, hey, what's up, Mom? Right? You'd be like, you'd have 38 minutes and you'd say, what would you say? You'd say, I love you. And you'd say it really sincerely, correct?
And then she'd probably get pretty worried.
She'd get worried, right? Tiffany, what would you do?
I would stay at your book section.
You stayed for my book signing? Oh, that's not bad. Okay, in your last 38 minutes? Whoa. Matt, what would you do?
I don't know.
Matt, this is one thing you don't want to do. You don't want to waste time. Okay? What do you want to do?
I'd probably want to call my parents too.
Right, you want to call your family, friends, and loved ones. Cool, okay, what else do you want to do? Anybody else? So we have food eating, family, friends, and loved ones. What else? Come on, I'm curious. Nothing. Huh?
Go outside.
I'd go outside. Who said that? Raise your hand, come on. All right, what's your name?
Stephanie.
Who mic'd me up. Okay, fair enough. So, so Stephanie, would you just go anywhere, or would you, would you go somewhere special, Stephanie?
Oh, just outside.
I'm a genie. I could give you anything you want. You're just going to go outside?
Hellraid Forest in Washington State Park.
Done. So what you want to see is the beautiful and the sublime. Okay, so we have hedonism, eat food, friends, family, loved ones, the beautiful and the sublime. That sounds good. Okay, what else? What else do you want to do?
Write my obit.
I want to write my obit. Now, this is a deeply Socratic answer, which is to say the point of life is to give a good account of what your life was about, right? So you want to write your obit. Not bad. That's good. Give me something else. What do you want to do? Yeah, go ahead. You want to what? I want to spill secrets. I want to tell I want to tell the truth. I want the truth to be known. These are really deep things that you want. You understand this? Okay, I want the truth. Good. What else? Yeah?
Reflect on my triumphs and failures.
Oh, I want to spend the rest of my life reflecting. Okay, that last 30 minutes. That's not bad either. Good. Now, anybody else? Anybody a musician in here? Yeah? Would you want to be playing? No? Anybody want to be playing? We don't have that many musicians in here. Some students say, I want to be playing music, okay, or I want to be doing art. Now let's piece this apart. In terms of your intuition, you actually know something extremely valuable. You know the difference between what's called extrinsic goods and intrinsic goods. You've proven that, actually, over the last 40 minutes. Okay, why? Because guess what instrumental reasoning, what are the values of all those little nodes where you go, okay, I'm going to get my GPA, and then I'm going to get my graduation, and then I'm going to get some money, and then I'm going to use that money to get some stuff. We call those goods extrinsic goods. And what's an extrinsic good? Anybody? It's the type of good that has value by virtue of what it can get you in the future for some other end. Does that make sense? That's an extrinsic good. Now, Julie, you said your life was 75% of that stuff, right? Okay. Now, on the other side, you have what are called intrinsic goods. And if you were forced to pick what you want to do in the last 38 minutes, did anyone say, I want a bigger bank account? Did anybody say, well, I really want that GPA to be as high as possible? Did anybody say, well, I just want to buy that last house? No, you did not say that. It's because you actually intuitively understand there's a difference between extrinsic goods and what are known as intrinsic goods. That is to say, goods that are good in themselves. Now let's piece it apart. You want to spill the secret. What's your name? Sneha? Sneha. So you want to spill the secrets. You want the truth. Good. Truth. Good in itself or good for some other purpose? Good in itself, right? You just want the truth out there. Good. How about eating? Like, let's go through this. Eating. Just good for itself. Do you think you're going to make money by switching flavors at the creamery in the last 38 minutes? No. It's just delicious. Right? You just want it. Okay? It's good in itself. How about, oh, I don't know, Matt, call your family, friends, and loved ones. You going to call them in order to make a bank account? No. That would be messed up. That would be pretty messed up if you called them up and were like, so as to get something else? No, it's intrinsically good. Okay? Now, what you have fleshed out, or what you're beginning to flesh out, is, this is the number one. I've done this sort of quantitative study, longitudinal quantitative study over 10 years. This is the number one. It's FFLO, friends, family, and loved ones. That's what you want in the last 38 minutes. You want it. You want it bad, right? You want to express love, and you want to see if love is coming to you. That's what you want. That's number one. Number two is hedonism, right? I want to eat some stuff, right? I want to do drugs. I want to have sex. I want to drink a lot, and good wine, okay? Now, this is not a frivolous want. It simply is not. Hedonism has a long and distinguished history. It goes back to Epicurus and the ancients, with the ancients. And they realized that hedonism, the desire, fulfilling pleasure, is actually an intrinsic good, okay? You also have creativity. For those of you who actually like to paint or to do music or to play music. You don't do it in order to make money, you just enjoy doing it, period. Now what we have fleshed out, at least in part, are the intrinsic goods that Socrates was after. He said that there are 4 intrinsic goods and they are interlocking: the true, the good, the real, and the beautiful. Those are intrinsic goods. You don't do them for any other reason than actually to pursue them and to either enjoy them or try to realize them. Okay? Now notice we've moved from Gyges. We've gotten Gyges again where we want him. We want Gyges to buy into these intrinsic goods. Okay? To realize that in fact life is not simply the process of pursuing extrinsic goods, but also intrinsic ones. So some of you, how many of you would have said, I'm a genie. I'm a very powerful genie. Okay? If we would have gone on long enough, I bet you, some of you might have said something like this: I'd like to stop global warming. How many of you want that? Cool. Would that be a good way to spend your 38 minutes? I'm a powerful genie. Okay? Or I want to stop world hunger. Or I want to stop sexual assault. Or I want to stop unjust violence. How about those things? You kind of want those too? Is that a good way to spend your 38 minutes? Okay. Now, let me ask. The percentage, Julie, extrinsic goods or instrumental value, you have 75% of your life. Like you're on this rat race where you have to go from point A to point D to point C to point D. Okay? 75% of your life. So that leaves how much of your life to actually concentrate on intrinsic goods? 25%, right? How much of your life is actually dedicated to intrinsic goods? Those goods that are good in themselves. You know, friends, family, loved ones, creativity, hedonism, that stuff. Give me a number. I'm curious. Let's ask Brandon. Brandon, what do you think?
Not nearly high enough.
Well, give me a number so we can play with it.
Is currently?
Yeah, I'm talking give me a percentage of your life.
Maybe a third.
A third, 33%. Tell me the philosophical problem you've established, or sort of try to articulate it to me. It is a problem. Because if you were given a certain amount of time left, you would pick intrinsic goods. But in fact, your life is not dedicated to intrinsic goods, it's dedicated to extrinsic goods. So, you see the issue here. Now, what's the solution? Let's play it out. How do you solve this problem? There are a number of different ones. Ooh, Sienna first, and then Lydia. Go ahead, Lydia. Sienna first.
I was going to say, treat the rest of your time like it's 38 minutes.
Ah, fair enough. So YOLO, right? You only live once, right? So just go for it, right? 40 minutes. Just do it. Do it like you only have 40 minutes left.
No, not like that.
Okay, good.
Use your next however many 40 years with the same mentality. I don't know.
With the same mentality. That's good.
Not actually with that urgency.
I like it. I like it. No, it's a good start. Lydia, do you have a thought?
Start with the things you have to do, the extrinsic goods, into things that give you truth, beauty, good.
There you go. So Lydia's solution is, and this is not easy. Lydia is suggesting this. We spend most of our life pursuing instrumental values or extrinsic goods. Find a way to convert those extrinsic goods or instrumental values into intrinsic goods or intrinsic values. Is that possible? Yeah, it is. What does it require of you, do you think? Yeah, go ahead.
To be mindful in making that decision.
To be mindful to make the decision to convert it into an intrinsic good. Okay, that's a nice start. Okay, how else do you do? Go ahead.
Start valuing what you have.
Start. Go ahead.
Start valuing what you have, like whatever you have in life. Start just valuing it, and like don't like how much like I get that house or something like that. So be happy like what you have. So at least you can live your life like happily without any regrets.
Good. Fair enough. Okay, good. So let's return to this central issue. So you say, you know, one way to do this is to value what you have. And not value it in terms of a monetary sense, but to value it in terms of a sort of intrinsic good. Okay, that grows harder and harder as you enter adulthood, because surprisingly, intrinsic goods are not prioritized in adulthood. Adulthood, it consists, right, in instrumental values, in paying taxes, in wiping bottoms, in doing lots of stuff that seems instrumental. Okay? So the trick in life, at least in part, is to try to convert those things to intrinsic goods. Now, let's return to our main issue. Do you think, let me see a show of hands again. How many of you want to say, my life is worth living? Okay, everybody. Okay. Now, how do you think you do that, given human finitude? Well, you can do it by living, like Sienna says, live it with a type of intensity that you have during the last 38 minutes. A type of, okay? Another option is to convert extrinsic goods to intrinsic goods. But one of the suggestions I'm going to make is that Socrates gives us a very good suggestion. Okay? He says in the Apology, the lead up to that fatal scene, in the Apology, the Platonic dialogue, he says, the unexamined life is not worth living. Okay? Now, let's think about what you really want. In the last 38 minutes, you want to say, my life was worth living. There are at least two words in there that are really important. The my and the worth. Okay? Now, if we think about this carefully, the worth of living has to do, in part, with ethics. In this sense, all the normative sciences, okay, let's say ethics and aesthetics, just to take two examples. Okay? Ethics and aesthetics are about what worth the good has, what worth beauty has. Okay? Dedicating your life to the study of those two, beauty and the good, okay, might help you understand what worth is. I'm going to let you, that's what you get to do, okay, in your education. Go, take an ethics class. But this is one of the suggestions that I'm going to make. Socrates' comment at the end of the Apology when he says, the unreflective life is not worth living, is this. Another word for an apology is in the Greek is apologeia, an account. That's what Socrates gives. He says in the Apology, he gives his own obituary. Okay? What do you need to do in order to give your own obituary? I'll give you a hint. The unreflective life is not worth living. You need to reflect. Okay? You need to self-examine. And not for any moralizing reason like, oh, you should be better at self-reflecting. No, it's for this reason. You don't get to own your life without self-reflection. There is no way to say, that's my life, without self-reflection. Do you understand this? And in the rat race for instrumental reasoning, it's not this, it's that. It's move at all costs. It's move as fast as you can. Okay? Socrates is saying, slow down. because you might get to the end of your life and, like Thoreau, discover that you haven't lived. Okay? Slow down. I remember what it's like to be here. It's frenetic. It's stressful. Slow down. Just say, is this my life? Are these the beliefs I have? Or am I living somebody else's life? Am I living their beliefs, their expectations, their wants, their desires? Or are these mine? That's the value of self-reflection. And you cannot give an apology without one, okay? Without self-reflection. That is not easy. It is not comfortable. And guess what it works against? Hubris. You cannot maintain a hubristic stance if you look at yourself carefully enough. Correct? I mean, think about this. When you actually get into the trenches of it and start actually self-examining, it ain't fun, and you'll discover that you are not the center of the universe. In fact, you'll discover that you're just a little meat sack who might die in 38 minutes. And that might make you a little bit more humble. Okay? So that might be a way to get to Geiges. Okay? So this has been delightfully fun. So I'll shut up and I'll take questions for 7 minutes or so. Do you folks, you can call me on it. You can say, Kaag, I don't buy it. But come on, what do you think? You folks are honors college folk. Good, Brandon?
So I'm curious then. So what role would an instrumental good have? I mean, are we saying if you were to please step back and to self-reflect, then you realize that too much time is spent on instrumental, extrinsic goods? I agree with you, but it seems like there's some extent to which taking time to focus on instrumental goods could allow you to achieve higher goods. If you want to do service and you need to go out and find, like if you want to go out and find things that you're passionate about, like
Absolutely.
That would be instrumental. It would be extrinsic, but it might ultimately allow you to serve an intrinsic purpose.
And higher goods are perfect. That's a great question. So if you didn't hear it, the question is, don't you need instrumental goods because they allow you then to pursue higher goods, like, for example, philanthropy down the road, perhaps, right? And now the issue is something that I'm going to take from David Foster Wallace. David Foster Wallace says, if you pursue power, you will always feel weak. If you pursue wealth, you will always feel poor. If you pursue beauty, you will feel ugly, and you will be buried 100 times before they actually put you in the ground. Okay? Now, that is simply pursuing instrumental goods, like they are ends in themselves, but they're not. Okay? I'm not suggesting that you drop out of school. I'm not suggesting that you YOLO. I'm suggesting that there is a way to take up your daily grind and not make it a grind, so that you reach the age, and this is David Foster Wallace again, so that you reach the age of 30 or 40 and don't want to blow your brains out. Okay? So, and that's what we're after here. Okay? Which is to say, I think that there is a way to convert instrumental goods to intrinsic ones. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Sienna. Or, sorry, not Sienna. What's your name? Allie. Hi.
So I'm studying human development, and
Great.
today we talked about like moral conflicts throughout life, and they say that in old age the conflict is like integrity versus despair. And this just goes well with the question I had earlier. Do you think they're exclusive? Like, do you think you can only look back and say like I did great, like I know my beliefs, or do you think?
No. So the issue about claiming your life is not necessarily an issue of looking back and saying I have no regrets. That's not possible. What is possible is to look back and say, that was my life. I own it. And I own even the bad parts, the parts that I feel like I have to atone for, right? Like the concept of atonement is the process of trying to integrate those really nasty parts into a more flourishing whole, okay? And if you can do that and say that you've tried to do that through your life, then it's going to be easier to say goodbye. And Socrates is the one holding his finger up, being like, he's very calm, right? He's holding the cup, and everyone around him is going nuts. Okay, but he's looked back and he said, even the bad parts, they're mine. This is not that far from what Friedrich Nietzsche says when he says, amor fati, the love of fate. okay? Which is to look back and say, yes, that was me. And maybe that's some sort of solace or respite. Good, yeah, Matt.
Don't you think Geiges could have been self-reflective once he reached the end of his life, which wasn't in the story, but he still could have looked back on his life and said, yeah, I'm okay with everything that happened here, I'm okay. Or like, did it further.
Right. So, I mean, this is a hard issue. So you say, the question is, so couldn't Geiges have gotten to the end of life and looked back and said, yep, I did that. Worked out well for me. Okay? And I think that that's, it's possible. Just the same way that a hedonist could get to the end of his or her life and say, I ate a bunch of delicious ice cream. Okay? But I would press the hedonist and I would press Geiges and to say, to go back to Brandon's issue, when you are you ever powerful enough? Are you ever rich enough? And if Geiges says, yep, I'm good with it, then I have an issue as an ethicist, meaning like I got to go back and start working through this argument again. Okay? Because what I want Geiges to say is, yeah, you're right, that's probably not what pushing for that power actually didn't bring me lasting happiness. It just didn't. But that's a big presumption, right? And you're saying, well, some people actually might be like that.
If he had hubris in the first place,
yeah.
He look back on his life and say, yeah,
good.
I'm fine with it and lie.
So if he had hubris in the first place, maybe this was so far my best chance at breaking the hubris. Okay? And maybe I have to work a little harder. I'll think about it. It's a good question, though. Great question. In the back and then back to the front.
What are your observations on morality versus hubris in today's poisoned political climate?
I assiduously avoided politics. Did you see me do that? There was that one jab about the president and nothing else, and now you're calling me out. So the same question, the question that we're asking, okay, today in this class is the question of our political climate. Okay, it's the question of how do you actually make people in power behave better? Okay, how do you actually get them to think through that that bad behavior is not acceptable? And that's why the title of the talk was what it is. But to answer your question, I think we have a long way to go to think through what the Trump administration, what they regard as moral. Why certain arguments for morality don't seem to have traction with the administration. And from a liberal point of view, we have to do some serious self-reflection to figure out why we are the enemy, or why I am the enemy. Okay? Because I am. And every time I attack him in print or verbally, I just substantiate all of their claims that I am the enemy. So I think we need some serious reflection about it. From the liberal point of view, but then we also have to ask why arguments are not, why they do not have traction yet. Go ahead, Sienna.
I just kind of wanted to comment on, like, to what extent is this hubris and being able to turn towards intrinsic values based on privilege? Because we have the privilege to work for the GPA and for the big house and the job. What about people who don't get the chance to step away from the extrinsic values because they are, day-to-day for the money, day-to-day for like surviving?
Great question.
It's kind of like the self-actualization, like how do you get there?
So one way of stating this question, another way of stating the question, I think, might be something like this, which is the people in power have no vested interest in giving that power up. Okay? The people who are being oppressed are the least able to resist their oppression. It's just the fact of the matter. Who's actually able to resist their oppression? The powerful. Unfortunately, the powerful are also often doing the oppressing. Okay? And I think that that's actually what I'm trying to, that's what the motivation for this talk was, to try to rupture that, to sort of destabilize Geiges just a little bit. Okay? If Geiges felt bad when I went, you die, like, if that's scary for Geiges, then we have just a little bit of traction, I think. Other thoughts? Oh, sorry, go ahead, one more.
My question has to do with the morality ethics. To
So I noticed you use morality for the term we talked about, a little bit about ethics.
Sure.
Where does morality, cross into ethics, and where does that overlap? Because morality seems to have a basis in religion most times, and I think ethics tends to be more about human nature. So where does that lie?
Sure. Professional philosophers typically do not separate moral theory from ethical theory. Typically, but I actually understand the connotation. So morals, the comment was, moral sometimes relates to religion or has a theological underpinning. In this case, I'm using them almost as smack dab synonymous terms. What I will say this about ethics. Ethics comes from this Greek word ethos, which has two connotations. The first connotation is that it's the standard cultural norms of a society. The second connotation is that it is right action. And those two things don't always coincide, right? And the task of the ethicist is actually to move cultural norms toward right action by virtue of argumentation or dialogue or doing what we did here tonight. So, thanks very much. Oh, okay. Well.
So thank you so much for this inspiring message and giving us a lot to think about tonight. And please watch out for the bus. On behalf of the Schreyer Honors College, we would like to present you with the Mark Luchinsky Memorial Award in recognition of your service and contributions to the lecture series. The award reads, Penn State Schreyer Honors College, 2018 Mark Luchinsky Memorial Lecture, Dr. John Kaag, 2003 Liberal Arts, Monday, January 29th, 2018.
Thank you very much.
CNET, thank you for recording tonight's conversation and airing this on Channel 19 in February. You will find again the specific viewing dates and link on the back of your program. And I'd like to give a special thank you to our student volunteers. Where are they? Alex, Kayla, Alex. Where are you? Thank you so much. And also I'd like to thank Donna Meyer for all her very hard work on this lecture. Thanks to all of you for coming, and don't forget we're going to have a book signing out in the lobby here at the end of this lecture, and thank you all so much for coming. Have a great evening.
Thank you.